of another teacher whose name was Plato with a T, not a D. Molding students, right?
Right.
And Plato was the student of another famous Greek philosopher named Socrates. So let's start with Socrates. Socrates famously loved to share information and walk and talk with his students in the Agora in Athens that you'll see tomorrow or the next day on the walking tour, right? Don't ask me about days. I've been getting my days wrong all day today. So Socrates, of course, had only male students. All the boys got the benefit. So that's a bit of an issue for me, but we're not going to dwell on that today. As he walked and talked and spoke about any number of subjects, the students would pick up this information and therefore become more worthy citizens who would contribute to the building of the greatest civilization ever known, the Greek civilization. The government, oddly, eventually took offense to Socrates' conversations, lectures, and discussions. In the beginning, they were quite in favor of it, and it seems a bit bizarre that the Athenian governance body would then decide that this was somehow offensive because the youth were being raised up to be wonderful contributors. But they did take offense and charged Socrates with a crime. I'm all about the criminological angle, right? And so the crime that Socrates was accused of was the crime of corrupting the minds of the youth. And corrupting the minds of the youth in that era here in Athens had a penalty. What penalty?
Death by hemlock.
You got it. Or he had an option, ostracization. And this is part of what Plato writes for us in his conversations with Socrates while Socrates was in prison. You can go and look at the prison here in Athens, the cell where Socrates sat. And his student Plato would visit and they would talk and talk because Socrates said quite clearly that he would not stop talking. And so when he was offered a kind of choice of the worst punishment ever, ostracization from beautiful Athens or death by hemlock, he famously chose death by hemlock, the poison, right? Why did he choose death instead of ostracization? Because he didn't want to lose the connections of his community. He didn't want to be forever banished from the place that he enjoyed so much. And plus, he gave them a little bit of a dig on the way out, saying, you're never going to shut me up anyway. Yeah. So it's actually better for you to give me the poison. Okay? So that's the first story, the story about Socrates. Plato took all of his lessons from that great master and started his school. And at his school, one of his great works is the Republic. And in the Republic of Plato, Plato suggests that in building his ideal utopian society, the Republic, right? There's many a republic in our world today. The Republic of China, the Republic of, any guesses?
Yes.
North Korea, the Republic of the United States of America, the Republic of the Congo, yeah? So it's a political and governance structure, and people took their lessons well, and we have that heritage all over the globe. But in Plato's Republic, he advises, and this is my theme that I want you to consider, okay? Plato says in the Republic that in the ideal society, the actors should all be ostracized. He says in the ideal utopian civilization, actors are liars, and liars really we don't need in our system because that's just going to cause a whole bunch of miscommunication and trickery, and people are going to get confused. I'm doing this in brief, okay? You got to do your own reading. That was Plato's stance. Aristotle, who lectured here at the Lyceum, took a different point of view. Aristotle argued with his teacher, and Aristotle said, in his argument against his teacher Plato, that artists should stay in the ideal civilization, but only if they tell good stories. Actors should tell stories written by talented playwrights that give us stories of bad things happening that turn out pretty solid in the end, because a good man is the hero, and a good man that has something bad happen to him and he figures it out, and played by really good actors on an excellent architecturally astute stage with some costumes and masks. Aristotle argues these are actors that we want in our society, because then if we control the stories, we are actually going to share the morals and the values and the ethics, and the 20,000 people in the audience are going to learn them, and that's a great way to communicate and build a civilization. You're here. So this is what I want you to consider.
But it was an extremely gender-biased society, wasn't it?
Well,
But
this is the
extreme,
thing.
yeah. Where women were not considered to have the same intellectual capacity and ability as a man. In fact, if anything, they were no better than slaves or children.
Yes, or dogs.
Or dogs.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's a bit far.
No, that's what he says in poetics.
That's
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah, slaves, women, and dogs.
No.
But my question for you is, because this is all true, what's your stance? Do you think that actors are liars, and we should get rid of the actors and maybe even the artists too, because they're telling stories that don't really help our civilization, like Plato would have it? Or are you on the Aristotelian side of the argument, and you think, okay, no, the artists can stay, and the actors especially, and we can make all genders actually.
Politicians are actors. We know politicians lie. So if politicians lie, then surely actors do too. And isn't everything that we see through the eyes of an actor manipulated reality anyway?
Or an imitation of strong values that can herald and mold a civilization. So really the question is about freedom of expression, about ostracization, freedom of expression,
and gender
or
suppression,
government control.
which is the government control.
Yeah. This is my co-facilitator. We're not arguing. This is my co-facilitator.
Oh, I'm supposed to say something too, but I can talk a bit about the economy.
But if it started women, I love seeing it.
Yeah, the started women.
Some women in some communities have a little more access.
Yeah.
In fact, we know from very small snippets that have survived on papyrus that there were women watching some plays. It's all very scant evidence.
False beards.
Yeah, or selling oranges. Yeah, but anyway, now I'll tell a different story about that. So please consider while you walk whether you think that we should control the arts as a government that wants to uphold certain stories, or whether there should be full liberty to tell whatever story we want.
But wouldn't that depend a lot on which side of the politics you're standing on, which we have to answer?
Consider this.
Though, isn't it?
Consider it while you walk. Go, think. Enjoy.
Great story.
And tell me when you get back.